Hello, and welcome to the Hamumu Halloween Home Horror Hoedown.
The podcast where we watch 31 horror movies throughout the hallowed month of October.
Ranging from the critically acclaimed to film school projects gone gruesomely awry.
And we take them all way too seriously.
I'm your host, Mike Hummel.
And I'm your host, Sully Hummel.
Now warning, we use a ghoulish number of spoilers, so watch the movies first.
Second warning, we don't know anything about anything, so don't take us seriously while we take these movies seriously.
Now, before we begin, I want to say our previous two episodes sounded like we were in a tunnel. So, this episode, we're giving it a shot. We're going to record outside. So if you hear any birds, gunshots, construction equipment,
wind,
we're outside. This is America, people. You're gonna hear gunshots.
That is so sadly true. Okay, so tell us about the movie we watched.
Well, I'll tell you something about it. It was called The Blackcoat's Daughter, and it came from 2015. And something I learned later after we watched it is that the reason it's called The Blackcoat's Daughter is that it was originally called February. And the studio said they wanted a more interesting name than February. And so he had no idea.
He just made something up.
No, he looked through the movie. I don't know how it connected to the movie because originally that song wasn't in the movie. But he came up with, he found the poem or whatever, The Blackcoat's Daughter. And he's like, daughter? It's about a girl? A blackcoat could be like a priest? Okay. Cool. And he did that, and then they put the little clip at the beginning and end of that song.
Yes, it was bookended.
Bookended, indeed.
With the song. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that title's a stretch, actually.
It is a stretch. Well, I kept thinking the black coat was like the devil, but I don't know.
Maybe. At the very beginning, when she had the nightmare about her parents dying, it was shot in an interesting way so that you saw her face, but you only ever saw the black, like the body of her, who we found out was her dad, coming to, like, in her dream, tell her this information. But he was wearing a black coat. Like, it was just like a close-up of his body in a coat.
See,
and then you were seeing her
together.
But I thought that was a little...
it meant nothing, but it meant everything.
Tap, tap, tap on the nose.
But what we should do is actually give a synopsis instead of just discussing the title.
Yes, you should do that.
Okay, I will. This is the story of a girl named Kat who is in a Catholic girls' school, like a, boarding school, so away from everybody. And she and another girl named Rose, both in various ways, end up staying there over whatever break it is, I guess some kind of winter break. And with just a couple of nuns and nobody else is there and it's just them. And scariness ensues.
Yeah. And that leads us to one of my first points.
Okay.
Actually, the most prevalent point I have for this whole movie.
Yeah.
Which is, nuh-uh.
Nuh-uh? They would not have been left there.
This wouldn't have happened. Like, the setup for this movie is so far-fetched to me that I couldn't believe anything else that was happening. Like, everything else that happened, I was like, yeah, but this didn't happen. Like, they wouldn't have been left here. None of this happened.
I mean, there were adults supervising.
Barely.
But okay. They should have been supervising. I feel like that's the unbelievable part. The nuns who happened to be staying there should have been, supervising these kids.
But, okay, so even just the setup, like, part of why they weren't supervising them is that the nuns stayed in this one building somewhere that sort of looked like a house, and then the girls just stayed in their dormitories, their dorm rooms, in these, like, massive dormitories on the other side of campus, basically.
Seemed like it.
Like, they were so far away. The one girl, Rose, like, left for the night on a date, which is the whole reason why she, concocted for herself to still be there. She left on a date, and the nuns never even knew. Like, she was in no danger of being caught.
Yeah.
It was bizarre.
It was pretty bizarre, actually.
So, I through the whole thing, I was like, no. That headmaster, at no point would he have been like, oh, you told your parents to come pick you up 2 days from now, and your parents are just completely missing, and we have no idea where they are.
Can't get in touch with them.
Sure, you guys will just stay here on campus for the next month, and I'll be back when break is over.
Yeah, but it was, I think it was only a week that they were going to be alone. But yeah, they shouldn't have been.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah, well, here's something, though. We don't know that because we're Americans. You guys heard the gunshots, so you know. But these people are Canadians.
Yes,
which
they were.
Is my point, is that throughout this movie, left and right, I was hearing jokes about Canadians. Not in the movie, just on the couch. There was a bunch of fun stuff. Like, my favorite part was this scene. This middle-aged man spies a young teenage girl all alone at a bus station, and he's like, "Hey, little girl, come get in my car with me." And we're like, we're American. We're like, this is horrible.
Yeah, he says, "Can I give you a ride?" And I'm like, no, thank you. And then he goes, "Oh, but my wife's just waiting in the car." And he points like half a block down
to a car you cannot see into.
Yeah, that the headlights are glaring toward you. You have no idea what's going on. And I was like, oh, no, do not. You go get in your car and go away. Do not get in the car with this man. But it's Canada, so...
where that's just people being friendly.
Yeah, she just got in the car with them and she was perfectly safe. And they were just going to...
whole wrong idea.
Yeah. In fact, she was perfectly safe.
That's true. Yeah, so the movie was tagged with brutal violence, and at one point, it was something, I don't remember what it was, but it was some interaction with that girl and the family that picked her up, and she was, like, rude to them or dismissive of them, and you were like, oh, that's the brutal violence they were talking about.
That's what rates as brutal violence in Canada.
Which, at that point, it was the most brutal thing that had happened in the movie so far.
It was. So, okay, that ties nicely into another point that I have, which is that this movie pivots to a degree that is not measurable in our four-dimensional world. You know, you want to say pivots 180, like that's basically the most you can pivot. This one pivots beyond that, but it doesn't go back to, no, it just keeps pivoting away and away and away.
It's a pirouette.
It starts at the level of we're making fun of like, oh, he looked at her for too long. How scary is that? Yeah. And it ends with the main character sobbing in the street because she's been abandoned by the devil.
Yes. Which... I mean, that's a big spoiler, but yes.
But, like, because at the end, and it doesn't sound as dramatic when I say it, like, when I looked at it, I was like, oh, this is like, so dramatic. When I say it out loud, it doesn't sound that dramatic. It starts out with, like, there is nothing scary about this movie, and at the end, like, I wasn't really scared so much, but it had turned the whole story on its head to the point where the sad part was that the devil had abandoned her. And I'm like, wait, how did we get here? What happened?
That's the part of it. One of my things with this movie was that it claims, in a way, to be three stories. Like, at 3 points during the movie, there's a word on the screen, which is the name of one of the girls. So it's like, Cat, and then you see some stuff. And Joan, and Rose.
Right.
And each one has their little story. And the stories overlap in time, but not in a way that makes sense. Like, there's a point, like 3/4 of the way through the movie, where it suddenly goes, Cat. And we're like, we've been watching Cat the whole movie. What are you talking about? Mm-hmm. And it sort of goes back to the beginning and tells a little bit of her story, her side of stuff we saw when it said Rose before. Right. Except it was really still from Cat's perspective then, and it's a little different now. Like, we see some things we didn't get to see before, but it's just kind of snippets. It's not, you know, the same story from another angle like you get in some movies.
Well, yeah, because it was less a perspective change and more we got to see bits that we skipped over the first time. Yeah. Like, it filled in. One of the notes that I made was the timeline in this movie twists and bends as much as a possessed girl does. Like,
which happened.
Yeah.
Indeed.
You know, she did one of those, like, crazy backbend things in bed because she's possessed by a demon. And the timeline was definitely doing that. Like, you know, it was bending in ways and, you know, ratcheting itself in ways where I was like, why? This is just uncomfortable. Why are you doing it?
And part of the twist of the movie is not knowing what time part of it is happening in. Like, it's a surprise. You think it's happening at the same time, and it's not. And that's kind of confused by the fact that it also has the jumpy timeline.
Yeah.
Like, it's
And
difficult.
also very diluted by the fact that I figured out that those timelines were not happening at the same time. Like, I figured out the surprise, I think, a lot earlier than you were supposed to from the storytelling point of view.
Well, that was one of my notes, which was interesting. Like, there was obviously a part where they intended you to not, this is the ultimate spoiler, but they intended you not to understand that Joan and Kat were the same person.
Right.
Which is sort of okay. But I was thinking about it and, like, realizing that hinges on the idea that you can't recognize the same person. When in real life, if it was the same girl 9 years apart, there would be a very clear recognition. Like, it relies on the fact that they're different actresses.
Right.
Which is ridiculous.
And to be fair, I think they did a nice job. Like, if they were using the two different actresses to that purpose, to distract from the fact that they were the same girl. 9 years is not that big a difference. I agree with you.
I mean, she was very young to begin with, so there is a significant change, but
not that much. But yeah, like, so anyway, what I was going to say, to be fair, they did a nice job of casting two girls who looked like they could have, in a stretch, been the same person.
Yeah, they did. They had very similar look. And that was part of what was weird. Like, why didn't one of them have long hair or something? You know, why wasn't there a difference? Why did they have the same hair?
So, you know the point where they gave it away, and maybe this is what you were, you know, where we were supposed to put it together, but it felt, I don't know, I sort of felt like I was being manipulated by the writers, and that always annoys me. I don't like when I can feel the manipulation. I understand the manipulation is always there when you're telling someone a story, but I don't like when I can feel it. So the middle-aged man, Bill, has invited Joan, the oldest of the three girls, although it's 9 years apart, it's really hard to tell that she's that much older. Yeah. I was assuming she was the same age.
Well, she's not that much older necessarily, because Rose is not a freshman, at least. She's probably a senior.
That's true.
And Kat is a freshman, so there's 4 years right there, or 3.
But she easily looked like she could also be going to this Catholic girls' school at the same time that the other two were. Anyway, he's taking Joan to dinner at this diner, and he says, "You remind me of my daughter." Yeah. And she so obviously looks exactly like Kat and nothing like Rose. So immediately I was like, oh, this must be Kat's parents. Yeah,
that's what I thought.
And then immediately he shows a picture of Rose, and I was immediately like, wait, what is... No. And that was the point where I'm like, the only reason to throw that misdirect in, is because she is Kat. And that was annoying. Like, that spoiled it for me.
Yeah, during those parts, I was working with this idea that those were Kat's parents, and these scenes where she wasn't Kat, they were on their way to go pick up Kat,
right,
like they were supposed to, and they were going to die doing it.
Right,
or
that's what I thought.
Possibly be murdered doing it.
And since it was clear that Joan had come out of an asylum of some kind, or a hospital at the very least, I was assuming that, yes, that Joan was going to murder Kat's parents, and somehow Kat had precogged it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was disappointed in how the reveal of the whole Joan isn't Joan, Joan is Kat thing happened.
Yeah. It just didn't quite fly. Mm-mm. And unfortunately, I feel like that is the whole movie. Like, this movie was super duper slow. Mm-hmm. Almost nothing happens in it, because I think the entire movie is the mystery. Mm-hmm. You're trying to figure out who's Joan, and what, why people are acting the way they are, what they're doing. And there's nothing else to it except figuring that out, which means it's all kind of filler and slow scenes of someone getting their high school picture taken twice. We saw the same scene twice.
Well, and so for some reason that seemed really important to the people telling the story.
Yes.
Because they, we saw it multiple times. We saw it in slow motion the first time. And I think it was
really slow the second time.
And it was illustrating that Rose was deeply unhappy and was pretending not to be. Like, she flashed this beautiful grin for the photo and then was so sad.
Yeah, I thought what they were doing, I mean, I didn't really pay attention to it the first time, so I thought what they were doing the second time, because the second time, after the smile, it stayed on her and got really, really slow as we watched her start to frown and lose her smile. And I'm like, okay, now it was like it was supposed to be the correction to the first one. Like, the first one, you think she's a happy girl who's succeeding, and then the second one, you're going, oh, wait, she's miserable.
But at that point, they had already given us so many clues to know that she was miserable. I was like, dude, I didn't need you to tell me that she was faking her smile, because it's pretty obvious.
Yeah. She had problems.
Also slow was literally every interaction between two human beings in this movie.
I know.
Every conversation was stilted and weird. Everything was just so oddly broken. There was not a single normal person in this whole movie.
No, they were all very depressed and broken people. Which, maybe that's Canadians.
I mean, it's really cold up there.
It is. We saw that in the movie, too.
And it snowed. And apparently, when you want to get somebody out of the way so you can tell somebody else that their parents have died in a car accident, you just send them out and tell them to shovel to the earth.
Yes, shovel it to the earth.
It seems like a very, mighty battle cry, doesn't it?
Yes, I really enjoyed that. And she said it multiple times.
She did. Yeah, actually, the melodrama and the emotional angst of it was the most interesting part of the story, even though, the last third of the movie was her, Cat/Joan, cutting people's heads off, lining them up in front of the furnace, and worshipping Satan.
Yes, literally. I mean, I kind of figured it'd be some demon, but no. Hail Satan.
It was straight up Satan. She said, "Hail Satan," multiple times. And she was, this was all she wanted. It wasn't that this demon had come and possessed her against her will.
Yeah.
And I think that was supposed to be a more, thing at the end.
Yeah.
But I can't tell if it was too obvious from early on, and so the reveal wasn't necessary, or if it wasn't obvious enough at the end, and it was just, the real reveal wasn't dramatic enough.
Well, yeah. I mean, I liked that part. I liked the idea that, first of all, this exorcism is the first time I've ever seen an exorcism in a movie go perfectly to plan. It took about 30 seconds to exorcise this demon, and he was gone from the world forever.
Father Brian is good at his job.
He's a pro. Now we see how terrible all the other TV exorcists are.
Which is funny, because at the beginning I was pretty sure that he was a sketchy dude who was doing bad things with the girls, because I was confused about who was who and all that. But yeah, at the end, he was definitely the hero of this movie.
I guess.
Except...
not to some people.
That, if you consider Cat/Joan the protagonist, if you can count someone who cuts people's heads off as a protagonist...
Have you seen Highlander?
I have not, actually.
But
I do know there could be only one.
Yes. That's because of the head cutting off.
Oh.
That's what they do.
Interesting. So, Kat was very upset that Father Brian was so good at his job and managed to chase Satan out of her. In fact, as his little bunny shadow was fading into the corner.
The Donnie Darko bunny.
Yes. Why are people that afraid of rabbits? Why does the devil always seem to have bunny ears?
I don't think he always does, but he did in this
a lot.
movie.
Okay. A weirdly often amount of time.
I mean, it's
or maybe
creepy.
Just those 2 times. I don't know. Anyway, as the bunny shadow disappears into the corner, she looks in that direction and goes, "Don't go."
Yeah.
Which was almost comical to me.
It was. I liked that twist. Like, that's a different thing for this kind of story, that she wanted to be possessed. I mean, that's pretty cool. Like, I liked the mystery. I don't think it was told well. Like, the idea at the end that Joan took these people and was killing them and decapitating them to try to win the devil back, basically. And then she was super sad because he wasn't there anymore, because it was a perfect exorcism. 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Like, not just out of her, but, like, out of the whole place entirely.
Yeah, he was just gone. And that was so sad.
Oh, she was devastated. It was a tragedy. This movie was actually, like, tragic. You know, it is a classic tragedy in that sense.
Nobody's happy. Nobody wins.
No. In fact, okay, so Kat's parents die early on. We don't see it, but it's hinted strongly that this dream that she had, that they were in a car accident, is actually true.
Yeah.
So Kat's parents die. And then later, Rose and the nuns die at that time. And Kat gets sent to the hospital. Mm-hmm. And then later, Kat, as Joan, kills Rose's parents, who are going to pay homage to the place where their daughter died 9 years prior. So there's a lot of convoluted tragedy.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they wanted to go there because, the wife, Bill's wife, was I
don't even know if she had a name.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to say Linda, but I feel like I made that up.
No, I think you're right.
All right. Linda he wanted to pull over because Joan was tricking them into pulling over at the asylum, Catholic school, whatever, same thing. And he was trying to pull over there, and she's like, do not stop here. We're going all the way to our town, which was the next town, whatever. Yeah. Primsworth or something. I don't remember. So I wonder if they just happen to live the next town over and they have to drive past this. But maybe.
She was so unhappy about it that you would think that she would have moved. I don't know.
I know. I thought it was weird.
But again, it was more of that, weird interactions between people. All of the interactions between Bill and Linda, terrible things happened. I get, your daughter being murdered is a bad thing. Bad. It's going to mess up your relationship. But 9 years later, it was still so dysfunctional, but they were still together. It felt odd.
Linda was very strange.
Yes.
She was... I don't even know what she was doing. When she was talking to Joan in the back of the car, and she's like, I can't even see you. I don't know why he thinks you remind him of our daughter. What is happening? What are you trying to express with this scene?
And she was missing a weird amount of time. She would just go off.
She was gone most of the time.
When they went to dinner, she didn't exist. It was weird.
She was sitting in the car still.
She was sitting in the car at times when you would think she wouldn't have been. Ratings. So, you promised me a ghost story.
I failed completely and totally in every way.
It's weird how often movies are billed as ghost stories and then have zero ghosts in them at all.
It did not work.
So, this was not at all what I was expecting. And it was not my kind of movie. It was just not my kind of story. It falls into that category of bleak. I think
very bleak.
There's an artistry to that. I think there's an intersection in that, using bleakness both in your color palette and your plotting and all of that. There's an artistry there, but it's an artistry that I don't enjoy. It's like looking at a photograph that's expertly taken and beautiful, but it's also sad and dark, and you don't want to keep looking at it because it makes you feel bad. That's this movie. And it didn't have anything then, the other things that might make me want to watch it anyway, because I've definitely enjoyed movies like that before.
Me too.
The ones that come to mind are things like Tigers Are Not Afraid or Never Afraid. That one.
That sounds right, which was great.
That was one of the best horror movies I've ever watched. Or the one with the missile, I can never remember the name of it.
Under the Shadow.
Under the Shadow.
Just foreign movies, basically.
Well, there's a thing. I think a lot of foreign movies tend to go that way because in America and in American entertainment, we like colors and flashy lights and, exciting things. And I'm very American in that way, I guess, because bleak is hard for me. But this was not an entertaining bleak movie. This was just bleak and confusing and not put together in the right way, I think. There was potential, but I think the potential was missed. So I am going to give this 2 shovels out of 5.
What, down to where, though?
Oh, all the way down to the earth.
Okay.
Shovel it down to the earth.
2 is low. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, see, I, on the other hand, am a connoisseur of the bleak and dark and sad and depressing. That is my milieu.
Nice.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you. I like that stuff, like Irish movies where, it's just like the kind of horror movie where there isn't really any horror. It's just a movie about people being depressed. Like the Haunted Hill Netflix series was amazing. It was not scary at all. It was just incredibly depressing. It was a whole family grieving the whole time.
But I liked that.
It was very good. And this does it wrong. The whole thing is very slow, very morose, but there's no meat there. There's just that. And like I said, the mystery. There's definitely a mystery to be solved, and that's what kept me going and kept me interested. But I wasn't that interested because there just wasn't enough there. I needed more to go on than what they gave me. So for me, I was trying to decide. And now that you took the 2, I think maybe I should go the other way and give it 2.5
That's
shovels
the other way?
Out of 5. Yeah, it was either 2 or 2.5.
Okay.
But now you've taken the 2 away, so all I've got is a 2.5 shovels out of 5. So, I mean, there was enjoyment there in that mystery kept me wondering and putting it together.
But for how long?
Well, there was still stuff all the way to the end. There was still something there. Like, the thing at the very end when she killed them, and then, like, she killed them, I'm like, yeah, obviously this is Kat. She's doing this. And then the fact that she tried to show the heads to the devil, and he wasn't there anymore, and she was so upset. That was still a little more something. That was okay, but it was just slow and weird and didn't work.
Yeah. Okay, the realization at the end that she desperately wanted the devil to come back and possess her again, there was a tiny little bit of redemption there because it was something unexpected. But I had lost interest so far before that I was like, eh.
Yeah. Well, I think for me it was more a question of I was still waiting for the answer. Like, this can't be it. There's got to be more. And then there was a little more. So I got something.
Yeah. I will say, what's her face? Who plays Joan? Emma is her name?
Emma Roberts.
Who was in
Scream Queens.
Scream Queens. I liked seeing her in a more serious role, and that end where she was devastated that she had been abandoned yet again by the entity she thought would be with her forever. She did a good job there. She looked devastated.
She was pretty sad and out in the snow. So I really hope the audio for this comes out okay because the wind was blowing crazy, but we'll see. Can't be as bad as what we had on the last episodes. And then we'll be back tomorrow with an even better movie that maybe has a ghost in it.
We'll keep looking.
Gotta find those ghosts. But there's a thing in my mouth.
Is it a bug?
I hope not.
Trials of recording outside.
Yeah.